Mike Harris is the editor at Veterans Today and joins us now out of Phoenix. Mike, welcome. It's good to see you. Now, clearly, from the Iraqi resistance point of view, or the Iraqi Popular Mobilization Units, a branch of the Iraqi security or armed forces, they deem that the U.S. presence in Iraq serves Israel. What do you make of that?
I agree. I think that the entire incursion that the U.S. Originally went into Iraq back after 9/11 was based on Israeli interest. You know, there are many of us here in the U.S. who believe that Israel was largely responsible for the 9/11 incident, and so that was all set up so that the U.S. would go into Iraq, destabilize the region. What our short-sighted foreign policy doesn't realize is that by destabilizing the Saddam Hussein regime, they introduce a lot of instability into the region, and so there's a lot of shifting going on as far as who is going to be the regional power. Right now, it looks like either Iran is going to increase their power over Iraq or Turkey. One of the two, or perhaps both. I'm not quite sure at this point in time. But the aid that Iraq is asking for in the form of intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, as well as advisory roles, which are typically served by Green Berets, these are key to keeping some semblance of stability of the U.S. puppet regime that's been in Iraq. The U.S. realizes the mistake they made in Afghanistan by withdrawing so suddenly. They don't want to, and having the Taliban come in, and the Taliban ultimately will prevail in Afghanistan. They don't want to make the same mistake and allow Iran to come in or other outside influences to come into Iraq. That works counter to the Israeli interest.
What do you think exactly it is that Israel is creating or causing in Iraq that has angered the Iraqis? I mean, we've heard the sedition among the Iraqis as one possible reason.
Well, Israel's goal has been to balkanize the entire Middle East, not just Iraq, but also Syria, Lebanon. They have designs on Iran. They've been trying to provoke a war between the U.S. to fight the war for them in Iran for some time, trying to create some incident. And so Israel wants to balkanize the region, weaken every regional power in the area so that they can remain the dominant power, and they wish to remain safe, if you will. But really, they have more of a global conquest, a regional conquest going on for them. They have a design for something that they call the Greater Israel Plan, and that's what they're hoping to implement by causing all of this turmoil in the Middle East and not allowing the Arabic and Muslim peoples to live in peace.
Right, and finally, Mike, like for example, Iran was invited by Baghdad itself, by the government, to help in the fight against Daesh. Turkey has not been invited. The United States has been asked by legislation, a bill that was passed by Parliament, to withdraw all its forces. So, I mean, when it says they transition every 3 years, every time they have this strategic talks, they go from transition their forces from combat to this to training, with the exception of training pilots at an airbase, El Balad Air Base. They're training Iraqi pilots there to handle F-15 fighter jets. The intelligence, the training, that all has to go. At what point do you think the Americans are going to realize this? And do you think that the armed resistance against the American presence will increase?
Well, yes. Well, first of all, from an American point of view, from the people of the United States, we are tired of the Iraq War. Many of us realize that Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. That was a lie that was concocted to provide cover for Israel taking down the Twin Towers in the Pentagon on 9/11. And so we never blamed Iraq. Many of us see right through this lie. And so that's been the official cover story, is why we were there in the first place, which most people have come to the realization was we're there based on a lie, which in order to provide cover for Israel. And so what the people of the U.S. don't support this Iraqi war. We never have.
Right.
We don't want our sons and daughters to go over there and fight and die. We want to raise them to be strong and healthy. We've got too many wounded, too many dead already. We're tired of this nonsense. Donald Trump was very forthright in wanting to untangle us from these Middle East conflicts, and spend the money that we're wasting on these wars to advance Israel's interests to bring them home and invest in our own country, our own infrastructure.
Right.
And so the American people are sick to death of this. We want out of these wars, and we're tired of, excuse my expression, we're tired of being Israel's bitch. We're tired of being Israel's vassal state to do the work that they're too weak and too feeble to do themselves. But you have to realize that Israel has enormous political clout in this country because of the wealth of the Jewish community in this country and how powerful they are politically. They've set up entire organizations to assassinate political careers of anyone who opposes them in any manner.
Mike, thank you very much indeed for that. I'm afraid we have run out of time. Mike Harris, the editor at Veterans Today, joining us out of Phoenix.